What's up guys, I'm BTC, welcome back to the Respawn where I answer your questions. Today, we're going to be talking about buffs and nerfs, which one is better for balancing the game, also barriers and different kinds of health. Before we get into the questions, I've been having a lot of people pop into my live stream saying that they didn't even know that I streamed over on Twitch. Well, yes, in fact, I do. There should be some info on the screen and the link is down below. So go and check that out and come on and say hi next time I live stream. So let's move on to the questions. First one is a bit of a two-parter. The answer is yes, you can repost your questions. There's just absolutely no way I can get to everyone's questions. So if you don't see yours in a particular video, feel free to ask it again. Next part is any thoughts on how deployed shields, be it Reinhardt, Brigitte, or Orisa, could be tweaked any? I feel like they get melted way too swiftly. So for Brigitte, this is a little bit different from the other two because she's more of a support tank hybrid. Her shield is not meant to absorb a tremendous amount of damage. It's there just for her own kind of personal defense and maybe like a little bit of, team protection, but for her, it's a little bit different. Like, it should get melted away fairly quickly. Reinhardt and Orisa, however, need to absorb significantly more damage. And for a while, back when it was just Reinhardt as the only real kind of barrier tank in the game, usually it was both teams would have a Reinhardt, and whichever team ended up breaking the enemy shield first would end up winning. So that's kind of what it was going on. But now that Orisa is in the game, Orisa will almost always beat a Reinhardt shield. She can just put down the shield, it absorbs all the damage, and as soon as the barrier is about to get broken, she can just put down another one, whereas the Reinhardt can't. He has to back off, and he has to drop his shield and let it recharge and stuff. So, as of right now, I think Orisa's shield is totally fine, but Reinhardt's shield is probably too weak. I think one of two things needs to happen. Either they need to increase the total amount of health that the shield has, or I think a better solution would be to make the shield recharge faster. This would bring the effectiveness of Reinhardt's shield up on par with Orisa while still being a different mechanic. Like, one is meant for kind of stationary play and the other one is meant for a little bit more mobility. Next one, I would love it if Reaper's Wraith form could be cancelled. Yes, completely agree. While it is good for getting you out of some situations, it is far too predictable. And it is just way too easy for the enemy to just follow you and wait for you to end out of the Wraith form and then just take you out. It's really easy. So kind of like how Mei can break her ice block early, Reaper should be able to break his Wraith form early as well. Next question is pretty good. Can you talk about the different types of armor and how they work? So there's 3 primary types of health and 2 secondary types of health. So for the primary, you have just the white health, which is normal. Every character has it. You lose it when you take damage, you gain it when you get healed, and when you run out of white health, your character dies. And then you have the blue shields, which is what Zarya, Symmetra, Zenyatta have. This functions the same way as regular health. It doesn't give you any additional damage absorption or reduction or anything like that. So you lose it the same way, but the difference is that shields will automatically recharge on their own. However, shields can be EMP'd and they get completely removed when that happens. The third type of primary is the armor, and this is the yellow-orange kind of type that some characters like Reinhardt and Winston and Orisa will have. The way that armor works is if the incoming damage is 10 or more, it will reduce it by 5. If it's 9 or less, it will reduce it by half. So for example, if you got hit by something that does 8 damage, you will instead only take 4. And if you got hit by something that does 120 damage, you will instead only take 115. This is why characters like Junkrat and Pharah are very strong against armor, and characters like Tracer and Winston are very weak against armor. Moving on to the secondary types, the first one is temporary health. This is what Doomfist gets when he uses one of his abilities, or the buff you get from Lucio when he uses his ultimate. It's a lot of extra health that's added onto your character, but it will slowly decrease over time until it completely disappears, or it gets taken off by damage. This can also be removed by EMP. And the last type is temporary armor. This is different from temporary health as it doesn't decay. Instead, after a time limit, it simply vanishes off the character. Now, this is different from the semi-permanent armor that you get from Torbjorn's armor pack or Brigitte's ultimate, because that armor will stay on your character forever until it gets damaged away. But with Brigitte's new main healing ability, it can grant bonus armor that stays on you for only a short amount of time, and then it just vanishes. In terms of damage reduction, temporary armor functions the exact same way as permanent and semi-permanent armor. And the last question is, are you with nerfing OP heroes or buffing troll heroes? So I think the first thing to address is that the overwhelming majority of the time when someone complains about an OP character, what they really should be saying, a better way to describe it is, this character is frustrating for me to deal with. Like, they're confusing overpowered with frustrating, and a lot of that whole overpoweredness has to do with what rank you are, because what might seem strong at one rank is garbage in another rank. But having said all that, I think generally buffing the bad characters is going to be better than nerfing good characters. It's better to have characters that are all viable than to have characters that are all bad. However, when you are buffing the characters, you have to keep in mind that there is such a thing called power creep, and basically that's the idea where when you incrementally increase one character, you have to incrementally increase other characters in order to keep up with it. This is most common in card games like Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering, that sort of stuff. But it's also definitely a thing in any sort of game like Overwatch that has classes and roles and sorts of abilities and all that kinds of stuff. So you do have to be careful with that power creep. But I think generally the game would be a lot better off if they buffed the bad characters as opposed to trying to nerf the good ones. And also you have to realize that a lot of the good characters are only good because they work well with other stuff. Like, for a very, very long time, Winston was considered absolute garbage tier because he just couldn't be effective, because at the time, the whole Reinhardt anchor tank sort of stuff, the Beyblade meta was around for a little while. All that sort of stuff was just incredibly powerful, and Winston just couldn't get a foothold anywhere. But now that dive is incredibly powerful because you have the Tracer, the Diva, and the Winston all working together, and you can throw a Genji in there as well. Now, even though he himself isn't particularly strong, he works really well with the other characters. So if you were to get rid of Tracer and Diva, then Winston would probably go back to being garbage tier because everybody would be running like, you know, Reinhardt type, Orisa type comps again. So again, you can't just go ahead and like nerf the characters that are perceived to be good, because it has a lot more impact than you might think. So I think, again, just buffing the bad characters is going to be the better way. And that's going to be it for this one, guys. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, make sure to leave them down below, and maybe you'll get picked for the next one. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out my Discord server. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter. The links for that stuff are down below. And remember, always, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this all possible. If you'd like to see what kind of cool rewards you can get for supporting the channel, check the links on screen and down below.